Hey, it's day two. I'm starting off 2025 with a banger here. I just did a practice target this morning, and it's probably the best that I've ever performed on a practice target, even though I have like called things out by name. This target contact was it. I guess it's bilocation quality, but it did not feel like a bilocation during it. I've had quite a few bilocations lately since doing the whole blindfolded method and stuff, but this just built out the experience organically, like the way that I talk about building proprioception, like a wireframe, and then adding stuff to it. But the contact is so freaking good. So yeah, let's just jump into it. I self-task this. This is what SF0 for me means. So I'm blind, but it comes out of my pool. I think I have like 380 targets in it now. And this is actually interesting. I saw Dick's post last night about Prison Planet. I think a bunch of people did from Future Forecasting Group. And he was like, can you hit a bridge? And I always say like, I'm bored of bridges. I get it. It's a bridge, right? So when I'm making these targets for myself or for others, I'm always thinking about it in terms of layers. So how can I layer, like Bar Caves is a great example where, you know, at its root, it's like structured land and somebody could hit it, they could get the shape and they could do all that. That'd be cool. But then somebody more advanced would be like going through and doing time explorations and advanced civilizations and all this stuff. So I'm always looking for like, what could I sink my teeth into if I made target contact and get something further. So the target here was Albert the First, who's a monkey. And in the V2 rocket program, there's Albert the First and Albert the Second. I think it's just that. But yeah, I think I made this target like over summer when I was really going through trying to get stuff in there. And what it is it's a big folder of a bunch of stuff. I have a PowerShell script. It runs and it'll select the target, and then I will like come back and be like, give me feedback or something, and then it'll like show me what the thing was. So that's context that everybody should probably know is I did self-test this. So I'm just going to get into the summary. I describe an experience centered on a vertical cylindrical structure which appeared to be a rocket or spacecraft. The session is rich in sensory data, capturing the structure's upward motion, lots of vibrations, and association with intense heat, cold, and chemical smells. I identified features like energy at the base. So like the bottom of it, there's a lot of energy coming out the bottom. And when it started, there was energy above it. So then when it switched to below, I was like, that's interesting. I was AOLing the Challenger explosion quite a bit. Metallic structure, a sense of danger, cutting edge, state-of-the-art technology, but it still felt like something was missing. So when you're state-of-the-art and state-of-the-art is still dangerous and scary, that's pretty much what it was. The environment suggested a launch site. I heard the word Canaveral, and I guess the thing happened in Nevada, so Cape Canaveral, which I think is in Florida, that's just AOL stuff. Surrounding land being like completely flat. The viewer, and I had like a water thing element. I don't think that happened. I don't know. The viewer perceives a biological element, key payload. So I described the structure first. I think that's the important part. And then it's like, no, there's something in the top capsule part of it. And that was biological in nature. Where is this? Whew. Symbolizing, the sense I was getting is that this was symbolizing early space exploration and the risks that are involved. There were a lot of emotions of excitement, fear, isolation, evoking historical or iconic space missions like the Cold War era undertone, and potentially reminiscent of the Challenger explosion or something else. One of the really interesting emotional impacts I had is that there's this scary fear-based sense where like someone's going out taking all the risk, but I think I said there was a bunch of white dudes who were really excited about it, but ultimately like they weren't the ones taking any of the risk. So that's pretty much is what happens here, which we'll get into. This is just the extraction of all the stuff. It's basically everything I said, the upward motion, the shape of this thing that I was talking about, the visual impressions, the chemical ozone-like smells, the vibration, the metallicness. There's this loud, cracking, cacophonous sound reminiscent of explosions, but there were this billowing clouds, and the clouds hitting together is what made all the sound. was actually the same thing as what I was recording last night for 2024 stuff for December. The environment gestalts, there's this big concrete area with these white lines, good visual contact, some circles on it. Kind of look like a basketball court. But yeah, I have a whole page on analytics that we'll go over too. The main thing that I ended up calling A, I think, was the payload, which was this small, hairy, warm animal-like thing that I called a monkey. And that's where it is. Like Targ 7 called it out. We're looking at space monkeys. So this is great. Now that's not great because the next line says emotional associations of sadness, suffering, forced participation. And that's exactly what happened. So intangibles of danger, risk, bravery, pride from external stakeholders that I was talking about, themes of sacrifice, collateral loss, and technological milestones, perception of being state-of-the-art for rushed and unsafe. Somewhere in here, I think it said that there's like Project Mercury, which is sending people to space after this. I think this happened in the early 50s. But yeah, this was really like getting to the point of sending people to space. Emotional impressions, excitement, fear, isolation, feeling of weightlessness at one point, and this detachment from Earth. I felt like when I watch a space epic or something, there's always this feeling that you can't get back quickly, right? It's not like going 10 miles away to the ocean and to the middle of nowhere. It's like you have a very long journey to get back if you even can. Historical context, possible Cold War era connection, just giving me those sort of space race vibes. Themes of providing capabilities such as early space exploration or milestones. It's a biological payload tied to humanity's primitive state. So really primitive box container thing that was awful with a biological inside of it. Just chaotic and like, why would anybody even sign up to do that? And yeah, that milestone of significance. S2s, just asking ChatGPT to take it and pull everything out. I think I've already explained all of this. That upward motion, energy propelling at the base. And my aesthetic impact was adventure, excitement, nervousness, scariness, isolation, and that feeling of weightlessness. I freaking love ChatGPT. S4 of X, so technically this is the big vertical cylindrical structure. There were these metal trusses associated with it as well. I kind of picked up like a whole structure holding on to this spaceship thing. At the top was on the cone, I was experiencing these like two built into the cylindrical shape of it, these two wings kind of where it made like a shape like that. And I didn't get any feedback on that, but it was like very strong that it was on top. And at the bottom of the structure, there were 4 triangular things sticking out of it. Let's see here. There's cutting corners, state of the art, but rush development, cutting corners to achieve milestones, feelings of pride and passion from those external reservers, the sacrifice, loss, sense of being thankless or gratitudeless for those who are directly involved. And already went over the emotional impacts, conceptuals, that payload, biological, I guess this says, or symbolic, maybe I said that in there. Milestone, intense focus on progress, improving capabilities. So like we are going to do this at all costs and maybe things won't be perfect, but somebody else is going to take the risk. That Cold War urgency in there. The AOLs that I had were all space related. So if you listen to the raw session, I am an AOL drive right now, but no, it's just in direct target contact, which is great. Challenger explosion, bottle rockets reminded me of 7th grade, setting off those things. SpaceX, Dragon spacecraft. Heard one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, which is a reference to Apollo 11. Rockets and spacecraft takeoff imagery, Cold War era urgency, a monkey or a chimpanzee in space. Voyager plaque depicting humans as primitive beings. Interstellar movie takeoff scene, putting something into orbit. Cape Canaveral, fireworks for New Year's Eve imagery. P-51 Mustang, metallic taste analogy. Carl Sagan, plaque analogy, which goes back to the Voyager thing. White men in suits making decisions without personal risk. and a race against time, symbolizing competition or an urgency to get this stuff done. Let's get into the drawings. This is the structure that I saw. That there's the two wings that I was looking at. There were these stripes of white, so it was all white and black. After I probe that, it's like, go check the top. There's a biological in there with those two fins. The upward acceleration with black and white, and these four fins sticking out for this vertical cylindrical structure. At the bottom of it, it had like three little cups. So obviously, like that's, I don't know what they're called, like burners or something. Yeah. This is the scene where there's the trusses, the truss structure that's holding onto it, very reminiscent of the SpaceX stuff, and this energetic billowing smoke from the bottom as it accelerates upward. If you looked out over the area, I saw lots of flat concrete with white lines, and the distinguishing feature were these curved circular lines, which I haven't gotten feedback on any of this, by the way. I just did it this morning and got to go run to do some stuff later, so trying to get this recorded. Now, in the beginning, I had some sort of an energetic event above, and this is what was giving me the Challenger explosion thing, was that as the thing went up, there is some event here that I did not get to probe into, and I don't know what that is. I think there might be some feedback associated with that, where like the first mission for Albert 1 was unsuccessful, and then Albert 2, they were able to succeed. So I think Albert 1 didn't even make it into space, and that was the target here. I took exactly like verbatims from the transcript. Vertical cylindrical rocket, black and white, billowing clouds underneath, upward motion. Those are just straight from the transcript. That's what Midjourney generated. And then putting a monkey into space was also directly in the transcript, and that's what it gave me. And we're into the transcript. So let's go take a look at the feedback link. There is this guy, Albert 1, the monkey. That was him. Poor guy, dude. Dang. Strapped to it. He was a rhesus macaque. I don't know if I spelled that correctly. That's a funny name. And the first mammal launched, that's a good short, on a rocket, V2 rocket. So this is where, check that out. Bang. Perfect target contact. White stripe there. Doesn't have the things up top. Black and white. That's freaking sweet. The launch was staged at White Sands Proving Ground in, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, New Mexico. I don't know if there's water in New Mexico or if they looked after that. I guess we can open that in a bit. Albert 1, a 9-pound monkey, was anesthetized anesthesia and placed inside a rocket cruise capsule on the nose, which I was mentioning was in the top of a V2 rocket. The flight did not reach outer space. The Hermes program began in 1944, had the stated objective of testing missiles and particularly reverse engineering the German V2 rocket. It was based out of White Sands in New Mexico and had launched 37 V2 rockets prior to the launch of Albert I, 8 of which carried biological payloads consisting of seeds and or fruit flies. So this is like the first one. Albert was the first mammal launched on a rocket by the United States and would have been the first mammal in space if his flight had been successful. I'm just going to hurry up here. They were supposed to be tracking his respiratory functions. They believe that Albert had already died due to the cramped nature of the capsule, which is something that I kind of allude to in it, that the conditions inside of it were not ideal at all. And the turbine had burned out prematurely at 57.5 seconds, causing the rocket to show off short of the Kármán line, reaching an altitude of only 39 miles. Now, I do say it felt like it was 300 miles, and I got the view of the orbit. So maybe that was just symbolical of what the goal was, but ultimately it didn't hit that. I had the V2 rocket thing up here. That was freaking, I'm stoked about the target contact on that. If we go into the bottom here, I don't know what the bottom of one of those rocket looks like. That looks like it's a single one. I don't know if the 3 came later, but yeah, at least I'm stoked on that. That's freaking perfect. And then there was Albert II. That's kind of an image of this. It looks like the truss that held it is not one of those big ones, but I'll freaking take it. And Albert successfully made it to space, but he did die as well on the way back. And that was only an altitude of 83 miles. So maybe we take a look at the white sands, and then I will stop doing this and just let it take over with my raw session audio if you care to listen. The experience for this is feeling with my hands. I wish I'd record this one on video. Feeling with my hands, building up a proprioceptive model inside of my noggin. And then as I do S2 interactions with it, I'm always interacting with my hands. And then that starts to overlay the data onto what I am kinesthetically feeling. And that ultimately, the goal is that you start with kind of like the wireframe of the 3D imagery, and then you slowly add components to it as you build the signal line. And instead of doing like an S3, which as you notice I skip, it's because I'm in perpetual S3. I'm always visually interacting with the object, maintaining physical target contact, which I really like. And the other aspect of this that I mentioned was doing practice targets that have lots of layers to them. So things with something that's interesting. I find space interesting. I find this stuff interesting. I find this to be an interesting target. I find that I don't do well on targets that don't really have something to bite into. Would that make me a really bad psychic spy? Sure. I'm not trying to be a psychic spy at all. I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was a kid, and clearly I didn't end up doing that. You know what I mean? And one of the reasons probably is that thing with authority. So yeah. All right. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm just stoked that this was a fun one. Yeah. I'm never stoked on practice targets. So I think the last one was last time I posted a practice target. So, all right. Hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, ping me in the comments, and I'm happy to answer. Thanks. This is Dave 2 doing a self-test practice target from my pool. TRN F5AA-4556. F5AA-4556. An instant sensation of clouds, three-dimensionally, fluffiness, broad, vast, light, the light and blue stuff. The ideogram felt really light, like it's lifting upward. There's like a dip down and then straight up, and then two like lines. AOL of the Challenger explosion. Yeah, that's cool. So it's like an upward and then this double circle motion, and then more straight line stuff. So if I had to decode it, it'd be like structures and energies, and feels like there's bios. It feels like a really complex event going on, and this upward thing. So let's turn this into a data packet. All of the data will be within this. Opening it up. And the first sensation when I open it up is like there's something in front of me that just moves up. This upward sensation. It's like a cylindrical column that is just going upward. Okay. Let's freeze frame. What is here? When I kinesthetically touch this thing, which I would call X, it's cylindrical, but it's like vibrating like crazy. Oh, AOL of like cylindrical like my microphone when I touch it, but this really long thing that goes up. An audible hearing the like one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, which seems to be like an AOL drive. So let's step back from that. We have this tangible thing in front of me. What else is around it? It feels kind of like a flat area, but then it feels like there's this uneven rising, like AOL, like a hill or something off in the distance or something. But so I think it's like a location with this vertical structure. It's really hard to not AOL something taking off when there's this upward motion, right? It's reminding me of doing little rocket stuff in 7th grade, right? Like where you have that cylinder thing and just shoots up. So we're going to label this X. Okay, X. This gets a downward right angle followed by two circles underneath of it. And those two circles underneath, that's why it's AOL in the Challenger explosion, is the two circles underneath of it this time is like, that's so cool. It's basically saying the energy is underneath of it. But then the energy in the ideogram on the first run was above after it already like went upwards. So it's like the opposite. Okay. What do we got going on here? Colors. There's a like very white, but kind of like off-white and a black, grays, orange, blue, but the blue feels like it's in the background. Textures. It's vibrating like so fast. There's this fast vibratory thing when I put my hands on it. What else do we have? Smooth, it's like touching AOLS, like touching dry ice. Slippery, very cold. Smells something harsh chemically. There's a cold sensation there. Ozone. Tastes. Froze my tongue to it. Lots of vibration. Feels like it's going to break my teeth. There's a lot of energy associated with this target. So those were tastes. The tastes are kind of like cold, bitter. There's a AOL that it's metallic. Like AOL like licking a P-51 Mustang. Which don't ask me why. That's just, I get the data, I report the data. Temperature. Oh, I'm going to get a drop down and lock. We saw that on the EEG last time. Not wearing the EEG this round. Temperature is, there's a duality of like extreme cold and extreme heat of both. The heat is associated at the bottom of the cylinder. So this is why I can't shake the rocket factor, because there's this like hot energy shooting out the bottom of this tall cylinder. But everywhere else around it is like cold, vibrating, and feels like touching dry ice. Sounds. Loud, cacophony. The word was cacophonous, which I don't know if is a word. Crackling. It's showing like when there's some sort of explosion and it's giving me an analogy now. Like if there were shooting out of the top of a volcano or something, there's the smoke and stuff. This is what I had in the session for December news, was the waves behind it are running into waves in front, and this creates this like smack pressure pop thing. So there's this weird like billowing of, there's the clouds that I was mentioning in the S1, but that's causing this smacking sound, like, and it's from this compression of air moving different rates. Dimensionals, we have this vertical cylindrical structure. There's energy going on underneath of it. Kinesthetically, as I feel it, it's like there's 3 upside down cups on the bottom. And then that AOL, there being, I don't know what the rocket things look like on the bottom of like a spacecraft thing, but we are so deep in AOL drive, it's nuts. And then there's like a clear visual of that from like an angle during takeoff. So this will make a cool thing to go draw. Going up the sides, tall, cylindrical. You know, it's like it has these fanned out wings at the top and like 4 on the bottom. It really reminds me of bottle rockets, man. Like bottle rockets on a much larger scale. And like the direction that I'm looking is just up. It AOLs as SpaceX, like the whatever Dragon, I don't know what it's called, like the one that, but it's saying it's definitely not. It's saying that this is something older. But so we have those dimensionals, curved, conish top, but there's like some sort of thing to it. 2 wings on the side. That whole thing kind of looks black or so. There's energy on the bottom. It feels like there's 4 wings for stabilization or something. They're thin, they're triangular, they're sharp. They hurt my hand when I touch them. It feels like I get sliced or something. And the motion for this thing is upward. Like slowly upward, and then it goes very fast and it's going that way. It feels like putting something into orbit. And then I just had an AOL of the putting a monkey into space. And it feels like there is a biological component involved with this target. And it feels like that's the more important thing. And I'm just making like verifiable contact still, which isn't good because we're probably like 12 minutes in and I'm on S2 of the first object, which is not great. I've made it to page 2 of the session. So motion upward, fast, all that stuff. And the aesthetic impact that I have is reminds me of the takeoff scene in Interstellar. Like there's something with I forgot his name. The dude that stays on the ship while they go to that planet and he ages like freaking crazy. It reminds me of that. The aesthetic impact here is adventure, scariness. There's that feeling that when you're in space, this is how I always feel when I watch a space movie, that you're removed from everybody else on Earth. It's like normally, if I drive to the middle of nowhere or something, you know you're a little bit back. There's this sensation with being removed from something. Like you get this when you go on vacation, right? But there's this sense of being alone, and that in order to get back, it's so long until normalcy on Earth or whatever returns. I'm hearing very clearly Rocket Man by Elton John. So that's cool. S4, we've been doing the S2s. Aesthetic impact I just did. Emotional impact of this. There is like excitement. There's nervous excitement. A lot of nerves, scary sensations, excitement. I'm getting a drink of water real quick. A lot of excitement to it. That's good. Tangible is this vertical structure. What is intangible about it? First, there feels like there's something dark and sinister, like collateral. It feels like there's some sort of energetic thing going on with it, but that like it's a great thing. And at the same time, it feels like there's death associated with it. It feels like something doesn't make it through. What is intangible about this vertical structure? It feels like AOL or AOLS, one of the two, of AOL or AOLS of the Cold War era. There's this race against time. There's this sensation of cutting corners to try and make it first and like doing things quickly to show impact. And that there's this very forced progression where things are happening more rapidly than we would do today. Does that make sense? What is intangible about this object thing that I'm perceiving? Yeah, it's showing things as like the sensation of being state of the art and being so fucking dangerous. Like going into something where, you're still state of the art, but you had to cut some things in order to make weight. And like things are just smelly and loud and hot and scary. And it's really like if you were like strapped into one of those cars and like the salt thing, traveling a bazillion miles an hour, but the inside of the cockpit was just completely jerry-rigged and like wasn't nice and safe and stuff. It's really like tossing yourself inside of this metal chamber thing and just sending it. Wow. What is intangible about this vertical structure? The unsafe thing, dangerous, danger, risk taker, adrenaline, brave, forgotten, martyr. What is intangible about this structure? What is intangible? There's a sense of pride and passion from people who are not personally involved. What is intangible about this vertical structure? It's like, okay, we were talking about these, it's showing me, I'm not of this political persuasion to call something out like this, but it's saying white men in suits, that there's white men in suits calling shots where they make critical decisions. It's like AOL like sending very analogy, so maybe AOLS sending people to war where you're not personally involved. There's this sense of pride and accomplishment when you took none of the risks. You just got the program funded. But then they're also like the ones who are like, we need to see progress. You need to make sure that progresses, and everybody else who's actually doing the work takes all the risks, and they're the ones that suffer the consequences. Wow, it really feels like a thankless, gratitudeless job. This is so weird. I have this feeling of weightlessness in my body at the moment, and I get like the creeps, and I feel very alone. Reballing. I get the sensation of like being in orbit, and being in orbit aboard something that does not have artificial gravity, which usually feels a little bit different than what I'm experiencing right now. Okay, what is intangible about this structure? Delivery mechanism. There's a feeling to look inside, and it's saying that the payload is important. And it's not that the payload specifically is important, but it's like a proving ground, a milestone. There's this sensation of we've sent lots of stuff out. I don't believe that we personally went to the moon with people, or if we did, we didn't send them back. And the Orion spacecraft that's there, there's this sense, this is an AOLS, an analogy. It's saying that it's a little bit like that, like where we need to go out and prove this. And when you do it, you've hit a milestone in success where, yeah, it feels scientific, it feels groundbreaking, it feels all of that. Is there anything intangible about the motion of the structure? It's critical to the story. It's like the key piece, right? Like with it goes up. The words, what goes up must come down. There's a really cool view from, it's basically like from orbiting the Earth and spinning very fast, the opposite direction that it spins, which I don't know which way satellites or anything go, or they send stuff, but it feels like it goes the opposite way. So like Earth is spinning its one direction, it's going the opposite way of that, which kind of seems backwards, but I don't know. That's such a cool view. Wow. Just seeing everything. You can like see like the northern lights and stuff on the Earth. This really cool view over all of that. And it doesn't feel like it's that high. It feels like 300 to 600 miles max, but it's enough that like you see the curvature, you're in space, it's weightless and stuff. Very scary, very cold, very loud. Is there any other things intangible I should know about this? It's saying go dive into the thing, find the biological, move to the optimum position to describe the biological. Show me it. I can't get this thing out of my head. It's like an earworm thing. One, how much I have AOL drove the space stuff. Two, like a chimpanzee or a monkey in a spacesuit. Okay. Move to the biological and describe. See, they feel very hairy. Colors are dark. Textures are hairy. Lots of hair everywhere. Dimensions are small. Smells like my cat. Tastes like a wet dog. Temperature very warm. Sounds high-pitched. Like there's just so much monkey data. That may be like an S5 AOL to deconstruct along with a space mission. It's saying right now, yeah, you're getting a little bit too much into that. It's like, maybe this is my conscious mind speaking up, but it's like, it could be like the Carl Sagan thing where there's this plaque or plate that got sent into it. And really there's the biological thing is not specific to it. That could, okay. So there's a piece to that where it's either a good analogy or that's good target contact where we're these like bald apes or something. But when you look at the plaque that they made for the Voyager 2 or something, it's this very primitive animal-esque sense that you get where it's like, look how primitive this culture is that's sending this out. Like they're barely above monkeys. So I guess that's an aesthetic impact. Go back, move to the optimum position of the biological. It doesn't feel human. It feels animal-like, but humanoid. And conscious condition, conscious thoughts. Conscious condition, it lives very in the moment. It feels forced and like it's just going along with emotions and stuff. There's just a sense that this is like awful and just really bad. Sad, frightening, torturous. so impersonal, like you suffering from impersonality and things. Oh, did you sign up for this? In a way, it was signed up for. So that's interesting. Okay, so we do have some sort of biological. It feels like that's the payload. It could be symbolical where it's that. I don't know. I feel like I've gathered quite a bit of stuff. There's like land gestalts that I can go into. Let's move back to the original thing. Described the land. Let's call that A. Artificial surfaces, gray, flat. Seeing like lots of gray with white lines and stuff, and circles and things like that. The word, it was just Canaveral. Is there like, it's like Cape Canaveral or whatever in Florida. But I just heard the word Canaveral. Oh, there's fireworks and stuff. What else? There's a flash AOL scene of like people looking at this with cameras and stuff across a waterway. And it's basically like a rocket or spaceship or something taking off into the sky, but there's those billowy clouds and stuff. Now we're looking up. I feel like there's like an explosion up top too. And it's just, there's that Challenger thing. Really reminds me of all that stuff. So, okay. Anything else with that? There's the cylindrical thing, but there's this vertical structure. We already know where this is going. Lots of metal trusses and stuff. There's an orange color to it and yellow. Lots of orange. There's like a black yin and yang like symbol, like black and white, circular. It looks like it represents like a ring or a planet. It's like a upside down Nike swoosh to represent rings or something. Tall, very much reminds me of the things that hold on to the SpaceX stuff in some regard. Very tall. Like when you're up on it, you feel like you can see the curvature of the Earth. This thing is like so freaking tall. Okay. Anything else? I guess, almost 30 minutes in, so let's call it. I'm going to say end session, go get feedback and stuff, and we'll see what's up.